I've been going back and forth over the last few days with who I see as the favorites here. I can find a reason to give everyone a chance at winning it. I can also pick holes in their hopes. And guys, I think that we are very lucky with the Champions League this season. The league phase offered up some fun. It was good to see some of the top teams sweat because they actually had to play Pot 1 teams. The playoff round offered up some big matchups. The drama continued in the round of 16, and there was goals galore in the quarterfinals. Every matchup had a minimum of 6 goals scored across the two legs. It was a delicious meal for all of us. And as I was saying, look at the teams we get to watch in the semis. I wish Benfica was there, obviously, but saving that, we have the leaders of Italy, the leaders of Spain, the champions already of France, and Arsenal, who aren't champions or a leader, but are playing very well. So let's dive into this, yeah? Let's go through the strengths and weaknesses of each side and try to get a clearer picture of how things could go, while ultimately knowing that anything can happen in these matchups. And that's what makes it fun, right? First off, we have Arsenal, who slapped Real Madrid 5-1 on aggregate, taking on PSG, a team whose aggregate win over Aston Villa could have been much more comfortable had they not shown signs of their young age. Because that's the first thing that I think is a bit of a tripping hazard for PSG in this competition. We'll go over all of the things that I love about watching this team. There are many, but their youthfulness is both one of their greatest strengths and one of their biggest weaknesses at the moment. I brought up his quotes in the UCL This Week episode last Thursday for anyone who follows that series. Thank you, by the way. It's cool to have, 40,000 plus of you guys showing up each week to discuss the matches. But anyway, Dembele was clearly furious with how things went in the second half against Aston Villa, and surely Luis Enrique was even more so, as Dembele, I won't give the full quote, but essentially was saying that PSG thought that they were too good after going 5-2 up on aggregate, and this is something you could see on the pitch. They started getting more lax with their passing, there was less of a drive to get forward. Instead of stepping on Villa's throats, so to speak, nice visual for you there, they thought they had won it and could relax for 45 minutes essentially. They could take it easy and just be fine. That's not to say that there wasn't any danger from them, because after they rode out that 15 to 20 minute period where Villa were far superior, they began carving out opportunities for themselves and getting in behind again. Dembele, Hakimi, and Doué all had chances that Martinez saved, but they could have been back on level footing or behind had it not been for Donnarumma during that period. Arsenal didn't have this at all. This team, who has been under Arteta for a few years now, were the picture of professionalism when it comes to how to see out a result in a place like the Bernabeu. They never lost their heads, well maybe Partey did, getting that needless yellow and a suspension for the first leg against PSG, which will be, as you can see, at the Emirates. But Arsenal never let the occasion get to them throughout their matches against Real Madrid. And here's something that I'm sure Arsenal supporters won't want to hear from me, but give it a chance before you start breaking your keyboard. I did find that the 5-1 aggregate flattered them slightly. Now, that's not to say that Real Madrid were potent by any means, because their attack was completely ineffectual against Arsenal's very good defense, but getting Declan Rice to replicate those once-in-a-career free kicks, 2 of them in one match, the first free kicks he's ever scored in his career, difficult. Plus, the final goal in garbage time that made it 5, that was stat padding at that point. That and beating this Real Madrid team with a backline like they have, it's hard to see how Real Madrid would ever survive with a backline with 2 oldies in Alaba and Vasquez, who both looked off the pace in fullback positions, a relative newbie in Asensio, who showed that he's a newbie, and Rudiger, who's fine. The team lost to Valencia, who was in 20th a couple of months ago, 15th place Espanyol. They lost to Lille, Liverpool, AC Milan, for goodness sake. They're not on it. But remember, guys, as I say this, more than one thing can be true. It is true that Arsenal were better than Real and deserving winners. It's also true that Real Madrid is bad at defending and attacking this season. It can also be true that 5-1 makes Arsenal's attack look a bit better than what it was in reality, but that doesn't change that Arsenal did what they had to do in this tie, nor does it change that they neutralized Real Madrid. So when you look at these two teams, you see one that has an average age of about 24 or so, that presses like hell, that attacks better than anybody probably Arsenal have faced recently, and doesn't really run out of energy. Then you have Arsenal, a side that is so incredibly organized by Arteta, and for me their strength lies in their back line and the midfield just ahead of them. Gabriel goes out, no problem. Jakub Kivior can step in, and there isn't really a noticeable drop-off. Lewis Skelly, unbelievable player. The way that Rice and Partey dominate the midfield while protecting the back line is truly impressive. Now again, Partey will be out for the first leg, which is a big loss because now you're either looking at Jorginho or some other creative solution there. Maybe Rice plays deeper, but then you lose a lot in the attack on that left side if he's playing deeper, right? I think set pieces will also be a bit of a problem for PSG, despite Gabriel not being there, who's usually their big threat from set pieces. I don't think PSG are comfortable at defending them though, as they don't have a lot of players that are very good aerially. Like Pacho and Marquinhos are fantastic, but after that, not a great outlook. So that could be a way that Arsenal hurts PSG. But when you look at the strength that PSG have, it's very obvious. I mean, I call them a nightmare to play against because I don't know that there is a better team in Europe right now when it comes to counterattacking. Barcelona are excellent as well, but more on that later. We're not there yet. But PSG, the sheer pace of Barcola, Doué, Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, and then the fullbacks who join in more often than not, Nuno Mendes and Hakimi, that's going to be a quandary for Arteta. We saw how they torched Man City, then Liverpool, despite Alisson saving Liverpool's skin and making it closer than it should have been, then Aston Villa. I mean, this team they're really, really going to test that Arsenal back line. But with how he gets forward, we'll see how Nuno Mendes does up against Saka, and if Saka has room to exploit that space. We saw Mendes get forward a lot against Villa because Matty Cash wasn't really roaming too far forward, but against Liverpool, Nuno Mendes was more disciplined and staying back and actually pocketed Salah for the most part. So that will be a really fun battle of Nuno Mendes versus Saka, two young, great players. Again, one of the keys for this is how PSG will handle the mental side of things. It's a young team. I don't know that that same arrogance will crop up like we saw against Aston Villa. I'm sure Luis Enrique will beat that out of them. But Arsenal will certainly test their mettle if PSG go behind. That said, they handled themselves well against Liverpool, getting a victory at Anfield when they needed to, so maybe I'm selling them a little bit short on that end. Anyways, though, this is a tough one, guys. I didn't even go into the midfield battle where Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz, and João Neves will take on Odegaard, Rice, and Partey's replacement at first. That will be a fascinating one, as Vitinha is quite press resistant. He combines well with Neves. Ruiz likes to go forward. It'll be fun to watch. With the first game at the Emirates, it's imperative that Arsenal get a result there, because if they are chasing the tie at the Parc des Princes, with the PSG Ultras creating an unbelievable atmosphere where PSG have thrived in the last few months, that will be much, much tougher than the Bernabeu, which I never thought I would say, but it's an exceptional season for that, right? It feels like a crime to even make a prediction. It's better to just watch and enjoy this, but, you know, gun to my head, I'll go with PSG finding a way through with just a single goal swing between these two sides. And I know Arsenal defeated them earlier this season, but PSG have evolved into a whole new beast. Dembele was being punished at that time, didn't even make their squad. Now he's their leader and top scorer by a long shot. Totally different team now. Now here's another fantastic matchup where, again, as I said earlier in the video, you can find reasons for each team to win and reasons for each team to lose. That's what you want at this point in the competition, right? If this matchup came up a few weeks earlier, I would be leaning heavily towards a Barcelona win, but with recent developments, it's not as clear anymore, and it has nothing to do with their attack. Like I said when speaking of PSG, Barcelona are probably, amongst the best attacking teams in Europe, maybe the best. Lamine Yamal is out of this world, doing unbelievable things at 17, which, by the way, guys, when Euro 2028 comes around, he'll still just be 21. He'll be turning 23 at the 2030 World Cup. This is crazy. Then you have Lewandowski, who is quite literally more than double Lamine Yamal's age and turns 37 in August, but has scored more goals than he has years on this planet so far this season. His recent injury does throw a question mark over whether he'll make the first leg, but it looks like at the minimum, he will be playing in the second leg. And of course, Rafinha on the other flank, who was undoubtedly the best player in Europe at various moments throughout this season. And when you look at the attack, which, by the way, Barcelona have, of course, scored more goals than anybody, by 6 in this competition, coming up against the Champions League's best defense thus far. Now that is fun. Inter Milan conceded just 2 goals prior to facing Bayern, the best team defensively by a long shot, but Bayern broke them down a bit, didn't they? They pushed them and scared them, and if it wasn't for 2 massive lapses from set pieces, Kimmich with that swing and a miss, Leimer letting Pavard go unchallenged, then Inter could have been in trouble. They conceded 3 goals against Bayern, more than they had conceded all tournament long before facing them. And this defensive drop-off from Inter had been witnessed domestically already. At the time of recording this, Inter have conceded 32 goals in Serie A, more than Atalanta, Napoli, and Juve. Last season, they had only conceded 17 at this point, so while their defense is still very good, it's not as tight as it once was, and Bayern showed that. But then this brings me to our next point, Barcelona's defense. I know, skipping over the midfield a bit, but look, I know that it will be a well-contested battleground. Mkhitaryan, Barella, and Çalhanoğlu versus Pedri, De Jong, and probably Gavi, we'll see. But it will be a great contest in the middle. That's going to be great. But for all of the good Barcelona have going forward and in the midfield, their backline is a worry. No, not for the cliche that you always hear pundits saying, they're offside trap. They will get burnt by that eventually. I mean, we're near the end of the season now. We've heard that ad nauseum, and they're still leading in La Liga. They won the Super Cup, are in the final of the Copa del Rey, and the Champions League semifinals. It's obviously working for them. However, when you remove one important component from that system, there are signs that perhaps it won't be quite up to snuff against a team like Inter. Alejandro Balde. And whether he makes the second leg, I think he's all but ruled out for the first leg, but that can change at any time. But if he doesn't show face in this tie, that's a massive problem for Barcelona. I mean, you saw the big issues that they had on that side of the pitch against Borussia Dortmund. You saw how Martin was stumbling and struggling to hold the offside line. They had a 2-goal cushion thanks to a lovely finish from Bensebaini into his own goal. Otherwise, that would have been a close tie. That was ultimately Barcelona's first loss of 2025 after going 24 matches undefeated. The streak had to come to an end at some point, but I still see that left back position as an area for Inzaghi to exploit. One of the best tactical minds in the game at the moment, a cup competition wizard. And he'll also have seen how Barcelona conceded 3 goals once again, 6 in 2 matches in their narrow last-minute win over Celta Vigo. That defense is looking shaky. Inzaghi is usually bang on with how he analyzes the opponent and is surgical in how he can exploit his opponent's weaknesses. And with Barella causing overloads on that side of the pitch, and if Dumfries is back in time, then it will be a long night for that part of Barca's defense. But also in saying that, Inter's attack hasn't been incredibly potent recently in the Champions League. They've struggled to score more than 2 goals in each of their last 4 matches. And when you're coming up against a team like Barcelona, you have to be capable of scoring more. I'm sorry, you do. I think that given the spaces Barcelona will leave the Inter attackers to, well, attack, they will up their attacking output against Barcelona. But still, man, like I said, they scored from 2 gifts against Bayern. They'll need to be clinical. Also, Inter's left side, where Bastoni and Di Marco play, where Mkhitaryan helps out, will have to come up with some sort of answer to Lamine Yamal. And I mention all of them because if you try to defend one-on-one with Yamal, you'll get torched pretty much every time. Bastoni was actually asked about this recently, to which he said, quote, "How are we going to stop Lamine Yamal? I do not know, because the last time at the Euros, it did not go very well for us. We need to defend as a team. We need full concentration and to be physically at 100%. That is how we can cause them problems." And I think that's actually what the semifinal will come down to. Can Inter defend as a team? We have plenty of evidence that they can, but what about Barcelona? Where Inter have faced big clubs like Arsenal, City, Bayern, and even Leverkusen could be thrown in there as well. When you look at Barcelona's opponents in the Champions League, who are the cream of the crop, elite teams that they have faced, I think it's a worthy question, as out of 12 matches, they have played Borussia Dortmund 3 times, they've played Benfica 3 times, that's half of your matches right there. And then who else? Yes, they beat Bayern 4-1, but then you're getting into Atalanta, good team but underperforming this season, Red Star, Young Boys, Stade Brestois, those kinds of teams in this competition. And domestically, like we were saying about Real Madrid, Barcelona deserve plaudits for how they have torched Real Madrid both times. But this is not the Real Madrid of last season, let alone the Real Madrid of previous years gone by. So this Inter matchup will be a very, very difficult test for them. Probably their biggest test this season. Inter, for me, have had a tougher road in this competition and have come out on the other side of it each and every time. Yes, it was a close call against Bayern Munich, but they still pulled through. With the loss of Balde, I think that Barcelona are going to struggle on the defensive end of things, and the defense is what's going to be the difference maker. It wins championships, right? The second leg is back at the San Siro, and I see Lautaro firing Inter through, but again, it could go either way. I'm going to go with Inter. As the loss of Lewandowski plus the issues at the back is just a lot to overcome. And that's how I see it, guys. Just unloading all of my thoughts for you. I'm always looking forward to seeing how you guys think things will go. Like I said, whatever happens, we will be absolutely feasting together with these matchups. Cannot wait. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys for another video soon. Take care.